Okay, Starlene, last horse for me to work today is going to be Louie. Louis Vuitton. Hopefully you don't spend as much. Well, I mean, if you want to, it's fine. But hopefully you don't spend as much with me as a Louis Vuitton. Actually, I have no idea what a Louis Vuitton costs. Anyway, last horse of the day. Let me get some of this stuff mucked up, and I will start with him. So we just drove back in from Nebraska today. Today is Sunday, what is today? The 19th. Just got back from the horse show today and got a bunch of these guys trained. So a little bit of a short day. I'm going to probably keep this session fairly short, but we'll see what he needs. If he needs to go longer, we'll go longer. But so he's been doing really good. I'm pretty happy with where he's at. I would love to start throwing the saddle on him pretty quick. There's a few more things I'd like to get a little bit more solid before we really start getting him under saddle and working on the bridle and stuff. But overall, I'm real happy with how he's coming along. I don't know if you've been out to see him recently, but what you'll probably notice, I would assume when you do come see him, is that he's going to seem a little bit less friendly, but he's not really less friendly. He's still friendly. He's just a little bit more respectful. Okay, so he's just a little bit more. He's okay with being over there. You can see even as I walk up here, he's focused on me and he's looking and chewing. He's waiting to see what I'm going to tell him to do. Now he's going, but see, he checks back in with me. So he started walking, but then he came back. He's like, wait, what do you need? Now, before, if you remember, first couple days I worked with him, he would have been all on top of me, right? So if you think of him being on top of you as him being friendly to you, well, he's going to seem less friendly because he's a little more distant, right? But if you think of him being friendly with you as him focusing on you, well, he's a lot more friendly now, because back when he was up on top of you, his thoughts were way over there. Now, right now, his thoughts are over there too. But I think he's just a little bit like, oh my gosh, what are we about to do? He'll get over it. But he tends to be much more, I'm going to stand over here and have a conversation with you, rather than being like all up in your space and like, you know what I mean? It's still friendly, but it's just a different, it's much more healthy. It's much less codependent, in my opinion. It's a much better way to be. But just be aware, be prepared for that he may not be all on top of you and feel as lovey-dovey as he did before, but he's a lot more relaxed, a lot more focused, and more comfortable in his own skin being over there. Now, let's say I want to come up here and see, he thinks I'm going to send him to work, so hi, bud. Hi. So that's what I mean. He's not going to be as okay being in your space, because he knows, hey, if I need you to go to work, right? But if I want to be in his space, if I want to initiate the lovey-dovey, he's still the sweet boy he's always been, right? He's still like, oh yeah, scratch me on the face. He likes that, And you can certainly come up here and be all lovey-dovey with him. He's not going to be scared of that. Good boy. But he's just not going to climb on top of you. Okay, let's go do a little bit of work. So the main thing that I want to get better before I start riding him is this body position thing. See how he stuck his head way up in the air and he kind of just lost it into that trot? And he's not really quite paying attention to what I'm doing. Now remember, this was after taking 3 days off, right? So Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So like those Mustangs have been in training for almost 2 months. And we took 3 days off and they really didn't lose a beat. They came back just about the same as they were when we left. He, I think, I'm kind of seeing that I think he has lost a little bit of the training, but he's only been in training for like a week before we took 3 days off. So I'm not nearly as surprised that he's kind of forgot how this whole thing works. But that's okay. I mean, this is like, he's still in like warm-up phase. It's not a big deal. And this is still way better than it was day one when he's completely hanging on the halter. I mean, look how loose this halter is right now. If I pick up on that, look how he immediately brings his attention back to me. That's amazing compared to where he was day one. It's just not quite as good as he was on Wednesday, in my opinion, but this is really good. Excellent. All right, he took a step towards me. I'm no big deal, but I am going to take that as my opportunity to go and send him to work. He didn't quite, wasn't paying enough attention to me to know which way to send him. He always gets a little sticky over here, so he's very gait addicted, is just like Braveheart was, the horse I was just working with. I'll post that video as well. But if you haven't watched that one, same kind of thing. He tends to shoulder in on this side and then really try to shoulder out and run towards that gate on this side. And then right here, he gets real sticky. He doesn't want to go forward. And right about here, he gets real forward and almost breaks into a trot, or does break into a trot. And then right there, I have to pop him back to the front. So everything's just magnetized to that gate over there. And that's another thing that I really want to get quite a bit better before I start riding, because like right there, if I start riding him and I need to steer him away from the gate, I don't want that explosion when I'm under saddle right there, right? And I think that's part of the issues that you were feeling with this horse, where you were like, hey, he just doesn't quite feel safe. You know, I think you said kind of like, I may be putting words in your mouth, but I think the owner of this horse was kind of like, I'm not quite sure what it is. It's just, he just doesn't quite, I just don't quite trust him. He doesn't quite feel safe. And I don't blame you. He desperately wants to go back to the gate and has no control over his body when he's not getting what he wants. You can see all the way from when I finally break through that sticky point all the way to the gate, his head's up in the air and he's just, I gotta get home. And then over here, he gets sticky. Anyway, you see what I'm talking about, hopefully in the video. But I wouldn't want to be riding a horse like that. You try to take this horse out on a trail ride a mile away from home, he's going to be spooking at everything, using every excuse he can to turn towards home. And if he got the opportunity, he'd probably just bolt home. And if you don't have any lateral flexion, you don't have any softness to the reins, any softness to the bit, you're in a real pickle. And if you remember at the very beginning of this, when I started these sessions, he had essentially no lateral. I mean, you'd pick up on that lead rope and it's just a brick wall you're pulling on. Now I'm betting, again, I haven't done this in a few days, but so he thinks I'm disengaging him, and I'm not. I'm just going to stay here, basically desensitizing until he comes to a stop. I just wanted to demonstrate this lateral flexion. Look how much softer that lateral flexion is now. Well, I say that. He got stuck a little bit there. So like I say, he's lost a little bit since Wednesday, the last time I worked with him. But he'll get it back quick. He's a quick learner. But he's still softer there than he was that first day. You can see every time he gets around facing that gate, he kind of gets ahead of steam, like right there. He starts to really go. And when I stop him, he's almost like, wait, what are you doing? I'm going. Why are you stopping me? I'm finally going the direction I want to. And see here, I'm sending him to the right, and he knows that. But he doesn't want to go to the right because that's away from the spot he wants to go to. And so that's why we got that little head shake right there. And that's why I'm getting more severe with him here, because he gave me that attitude. When he was just calm and just kind of like, I'm not quite sure what to do and distracted, I was okay with it. But the moment he gives me that, I'm in charge, why are you telling me what to do? I'm going to get pretty severe with him. You see, now he's a little more focused and a little more like, oh, you're the boss. And so when I say he might seem a little bit less friendly, well, because now he sees the human, at least he sees me, as the boss. And yeah, you might be a little less friendly with the boss, right? The boss walks up while you're at work and you're like, oh, everybody shape up, everybody act right, the boss is here, right? You're not going to be quite as friendly and playing around when the boss walks up. And he needs to see me as the boss, not scared or, I'm going to tighten this halter up a little bit. It's a little bit loose. But just like, oh, better shape up. It's time to work. The boss is here, All right, he stepped up a little bit there, so I'm just going to send him to work. So he's getting a lot better mentally. And when I say better, I mean better since day one. Like when I pick up on this rope, at least he does come back to me mentally, and I can cue him to stop and go the other direction. And he's much more tuned into me mentally. However, he still has the remnants of all the really bad um, physical body movement type stuff that he kind of has developed, I think, over, probably the last year of his training, from all these times he's just very distracted, very to the outside, and picking his head up, and his head's stiff and everything, and his body's not really working correctly. So now that we have him mentally connected, we can start to work on that physical stuff, but it's going to take some time to get him physically working correctly. And, if you're just going to trail ride on him, that may not be such a big deal. But I know the owner of this horse said she wanted to do ranch versatility on him. So if you're going to come in and compete in a reining pattern, you're just wasting your entry fee if you come in and his head's stuck in and he's braced and he's bat, 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 bat. You're not ever going to win a dime on him if you compete on him that way. So you have to get him where he's flowing correctly, lifting his back, engaging his core, collected in his face, soft to the reins, all these things, driving up from behind. If you ever want any hope of doing a sliding stop, doing turnarounds, the entire reining pattern, a slow lope versus an extended lope, those things are just, even ranch versatility, certainly rein cow horse, but even the ranch versatility shows are just too competitive these days to come in there with a horse that's not using its body correctly. You'll never win anything. And so we can get him there. Like naturally, he's a pretty decent mover. He just doesn't use his body correctly. And so we just need to do a lot of work on his body movement. Better. Good. I'm going to go and ask him for a trot. I'm going to see if I can slow him down to a walk. Keep walking, though. Keep walking. He thought I wanted him to stop, which is okay, but you got to keep walking. Good. I haven't done a lot of speed control with him, so I'm not, overly concerned that he didn't understand that cue. The great thing is that he was focusing on me. He came back to a stop. When in doubt, focus and stop is not a bad choice, right? I'm going to ask him to trot. So like many horses, as he's trotting, his head and neck get stiff. And then whenever I pick up on this rope, like that right there, he has to break to a walk in order to actually bend. And now he can't get back into the trot because his head and neck is loose. So it's like you got one or the other. And I've talked about this a lot with other horses. So there's a lot of videos on this out there. I'm not going to go into super depth with him, all the body mechanics stuff that's happening right now. But Starling, if you have questions on what I'm doing, please ask, because even though I'm not going into depth on this one, if you have questions on what's going on, I will definitely answer them in future videos working on this stuff. Okay, getting better. I'm not gonna try to make him move perfectly in one night. He just pawed, so I'm gonna go and put him back to work. I really like the way he does those turns. Like he could make a really good cow horse just physically. Did you see how he really sat on his haunches and pivoted and cleared his shoulders out of the way? Like he has the physical ability to make a really nice cow horse, but it would take a lot of work on his body making him move correctly. Good. There's looking at you. Okay, now I can do what I was going to do before he started pawing, and I had to do more groundwork with him. What I'm going to do now is this exercise where I back him, move his hind end, back him, move his hind end, back him. So I'm going to kind of back a box or an S shape, or I don't really care what the shape is per se. What I'm really looking for is, now I'm going to have to do something different because he gave me something different here. So he tried to block out this left side, and then when I got into the left side, he started doing a bunch of squirrely stuff with his shoulder and his head, kind of trying to put his head in my space and trying to get his shoulder away, just doing a bunch of different squirrely things. So I'm kind of having to undo all the squirrely things he's doing. Right here, I'm just asking for him to soften his head and neck, lower it, but not so much lower as release those tight, tense muscles. Basically, just release the pressure. That was a little bit. You can see anything that happens that he's not quite completely okay with, he just goes super braced in his head and neck and braced in his body, and everything kind of falls apart. You know, when things are going really good with this horse, things are going really good. You know, there's a lot of good things happening. The problem is whenever something happens that he's not quite okay with, it's braced in the head and neck. He doesn't mentally know how to deal with things. You know, part of being a well-adjusted human or a well-adjusted horse, either one, is that we can't expose a kid or a human or a horse to everything that they're ever going to be exposed to in life and teach them how to deal with each individual thing, right? You can't do that. So you have to teach a kid or an adult or a horse how to mentally cope with new things happening. So if something is presented to you that you've never seen and you don't know what it is and you're scared of it, you've got to have the mental capability of going, wait, I know how to deal with new things. I can relax. I've got the tools. Right now, he doesn't have the tools to deal with any kind of new situation. And that's what we're trying to teach him. The first thing is just give to pressure. There's pressure down on the halter, and he's just pulling up into it rather than giving down to it. And to give to that pressure, he also has to release these neck muscles, which is going to be really good for his mental state. So he's releasing very momentarily here. And as soon as I release, his head's popping back up. So it's like doing, doing. But I'm still releasing because as soon as he releases, he's got to get the release from me to know that that's the right thing to do. And eventually, it'll just start to stay down a little bit more. See that right there? He's like just feeling the weight of this rope. He actually like, maybe I should release my neck. That's a good start. Okay, good. Good boy. He really does like to be praised. A lot of horses don't want to be petted. When you pet them, you can tell they're like scared of it. He wants to be petted. When you come up here and you're like, oh boy, you can tell. He jumped a little bit initially, but you can tell he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I know I did the right thing. So that's really cool that he wants that, and that's not going away. Better, much better lateral flexion than it was the very first day. That's for sure. Not as good as it was on Wednesday, last time I trained him. What was I working on? Oh yeah, okay. So I was trying to come up here and back him up, but he blocked me out and did a bunch of stuff. You notice that time he tried to block me out a little bit, but he didn't really commit to it. And he didn't move his shoulder, didn't move his feet. So that's all good. Okay, now I'm going to ask him to back up. So I'm going to put a little bit of downward pressure here. Good. Bring his head down. I want to start with a nice, low, loose head and neck. Because I don't want him to get in the habit of backing up from a stiff head and neck. Okay, I'm going to start from there. Eventually, I'd like that quite a bit better, but I'll start from there. Ask him to back up. Good. Very nice. He actually got looser in his head and neck once he started moving his feet. It's pretty cool. I haven't seen most horses be like that. Most horses can have a nice loose neck, but as soon as they have to move their feet, their head bounces back up. He was actually kind of the opposite. It's very interesting. All right, same thing again. Ask him to back up. Good. That was very nice. Okay. The second part of this exercise is disengaging his hind end. So I'm going to use my fingers, I'm going to kind of bump him to mimic where my boot and spur would be if they were back a little bit in the stirrup, okay? Asking his hind end to move. And I want to keep this until I get a nice disengage right there. This close hind foot needs to step up and under that far hind foot. I'm going to ask for it again. All right, not that. Not that. Not that. He's going backwards and all this. I need him to step up there. Good. Now he gets the reward and the release. So you can see he's not standing currently ready to do what I'm asking him to do, right? So collection is being ready for the next ask, whatever that next ask may be, is being ready to go to the left, ready to go to the right, ready to go forward, ready to go backward. It's that readiness that's really what collection is all about. And right now he's not standing. Now he might be because, but a second ago when I was talking about it, he was not standing ready to do that disengage. And so he wasn't collected. So the more times there, now he's going to start to stand just normally with his abs and everything more engaged because he knows he needs to be ready to do this disengage. See, he's standing a little flat-footed there, not quite ready for it. But this one will be a little bit quicker. Yeah, maybe not. There. That was what we want. And this stuff all works together. The lateral flexion, the disengaging the hind end, it all connects through their body. The lead rope should be connected all the way to that hind foot. You can only get your head and neck working so good if the hind end's not working, and vice versa. So I'm starting to really dislike the way he tends to put his head into your space right here, like that. He's getting a little too much. Most horses, I don't mind that too much, but with him, after kind of what he did on that side and now doing it on this side too, I think he knows his size. He knows the size of his head, and he's like, I can just push you out of my way, basically. And so I'm trying not to get too much because I don't want to just sock him right here, because I still want him to be lovey-dovey. I don't want him to be like twitchy about just petting on him and stuff, but I also kind of need him out of my space. So what I might do here is go into some shoulder control just to help clear him out of my space here. See how he's not yielding to that very well? There. Then he steps right back into it, so I'm going to pick it up again and ask him again. There. Now he ended with his head stuck up in the air, and kind of the opposite of what I was complaining about earlier. It was way over to that side instead of I don't need it in my space, but I also don't want it stuck way over in the air over there. And then his lateral flexion's pretty crappy. There, now his neck is loosened up. Good. Now see when I stand up here, I'd like his focus a little bit more, but at least his head's not in my space. So since now he's kind of thinking over there, so I'm going to lead this way. And he was actually pretty ready for that. I was kind of surprised. I thought it was going to pull him off balance there because I didn't think he'd be ready for it. Like that right there. See how he wasn't ready for that at all? Because his thoughts didn't follow me in that lead rope. Better. Okay, now I've kind of got his whole body working a little bit better. We did some shoulders, some front end, some back end. I'm going to go ahead and send him. And look at that. He's already walking better. See how that head's hanging lower? He's licking and chewing. He's not driving towards the gate as bad. Everything's working a little bit better here. Now I'm going to go ahead and drive him up into that trot. And I want him to push off in this trot without stiffening up his head and neck. I'm okay that it took him a while to get into the trot because look how much better this trot is now. Because he had to kind of think about how to do it. Now that wasn't so great. That's because he wanted to be by the gate. He's like, I don't want to trot. I'm by the gate. I'm where I want to be. I don't want to trot. So we kind of used up all that money we put in the bank a second ago with all that work. We kind of used it up now. He's kind of back to his old ways. See how his head's stuck in the air and everything. So that tells you, and I really probably shouldn't let him stop and rest right here, but that tells you kind of where we're at in the training, that it took 20 minutes of training to get him using his body and thinking and everything for about 3 circles, right? Not a very good training to performance ratio. Not enough for me to throw a saddle on him and expect to go on an hour ride or something and have him stay sane and good the whole time, right? But don't worry, it's going to get exponentially better. Today it took 20 minutes of training to get 3 circles. It's going to get faster and faster, but eventually it'll take 3 minutes of training to get 20 minutes of good circles or whatever. But just a little reality check of where we are right now. But you can see he's in a really good mental place here, nice and loose in his neck, staying focused, not feeling the need to walk around, quite happy to be over there, not by the gate. He's probably going to rebalance that foot here in a second, so it's kind of that foot stuck out in front of him. He's probably going to bring it back and square himself up here in a second, would be my guess. We'll see. Or he'll walk in towards me, one or the other. So if he does that, I'll just go ahead and send him to work. You can see he's reluctant to trot now because he doesn't have all that anxiety and stiffness helping him trot. So now he has to trot using his actual muscles. And that's not very much fun. I'm going to go ahead and transition to lateral flexion here because I picked up on that rope a couple times and it didn't feel like he was soft at all. And you can tell as I'm transitioning in this lateral flexion, now he's pulling back on this rope really hard. It's just this flexion's not working at all right now. So this was the correct exercise to choose right here. Because I could spend 20 minutes in those circles asking for lateral flexion or asking for softness to the side of the halter, and I could just fight with him for 20 minutes and not get it. Or I could just transition up to lateral flexion, get it in a minute or two, and now go right back to work and see if my halter works a little bit better now. Nope, not really. Still super stiff. We'll just transition right into lateral flexion. You can see how stiff he gets right there. Get your face out of my space. Thank you. See, he has no balance between staying out of my space and staying respectful, but also giving to the halter and being soft to it, right? That was a little bit better. I just released there because I saw that eye come over here. There, he's a little bit softer. Like a little bit more, though. He kind of has a a brace right there. Like that's as far as he's willing to go. I need a little bit more. There you go. He gave me a little bit more right there. Okay. Now let's try this again. Ask him to go forward. See, he's not even ready to go forward now because of all that flexion we did. Okay, that picking up on that halter is working a little bit better than it did earlier. I'm at least getting a little bit of pull now. You can see he's kind of keeping slack in that lead rope. Right there. Good. That's not as good as I would like it to be eventually, but those two little iterations of lateral flexion gave me something, because the 2 times before I would pick up on that lead rope on the halter and it just felt like I was pulling on a tree. I mean, there was nothing. This time I'd pick up on it and go, he'd just give just that much to the inside. And for today, I want to reward that. Okay, we're back in that same kind of unstable state like I've talked about, like we were earlier. You can see one of his feet is out in front of the other, so he's not quite standing square and just like, I'm relaxed. He's kind of like, am I going to go somewhere? And so what I want to see here is he going to relax and settle into where he is, or is he going to walk up towards me? All right, he's going to paw. We can go back to work. That's okay. Go the direction I'm telling you to go, though. See how he, right, coming around that corner right there, he sticks his head, and this too, sticks his head way up in the air and braces against the rope, right? That's not an okay way to move, and that is going to be terrible once we get under saddle. Like I say, if you want to do ranch versatility and stuff, we have to get that kind of head bracing to go away. See how there's a bit of an explosion right there? He's got to be able to drive up into that trot, not explode up into that trot. All right, let me grab this poop before we shred it. And spots like that where he's not being very supple to the halter as I'm leading, even while I'm picking up this poop, I can still be training. Because if he hits the end of that lead rope, or like right there where he kind of walked out beside me, that's where he should be. He should be slacking the lead rope, focused on me, even while I'm working up here. I don't need him walking around me, getting into trouble, whatever. You know, if I was out cowboying and needed to get off and fix a fence or open a gate or something, I don't need him walking around me getting into trouble. I need him just to stand there patiently, wait, and stay focused. You know, in versatility, you have to do basically a halter class, a conformation class. And you need that horse basically not to move unless you tell it to move. You definitely can't have it walking around you, walking past you, going and doing things on its own when you're in that conformation class. So this is how I need him right here. All right, so this is a pretty good mental state, but when he pooped and I had to stop him so I could pick up that poop, we were going, so I don't want to end with him just sitting here. So I'm going to go ahead and send him to work. Not because he did anything bad, just to pick up with where we were. Much better. Look at that bend he's got in his body now. That's what I'm looking for. Now he is thinking about picking up a trot right there. So I'm going to put a little bend there, but you got to keep walking. So this is that balance between the brake pedal, which is my right hand currently picking up on that halter, and the gas pedal, which is my left hand driving him up. And the more you can press the brake and it works, and the more you press the gas and it works, the more collection you're going to get. This is more how I want him using his body. Okay, let's go ahead and ask him to trot. It was actually a better trot pickup right there. It's not great. We need to get it a lot better before we start riding and going to versatility, but it was better. Okay, I was ready to be done with him right there. I was going to give him an opportunity to stop, but he totally ignored my offer to stop, probably because the gate's over there. And so we're going to go back to work. Now he was being a little dead on the halter there. So I'm just kind of bumping the halter in. I could transition to lateral flexion here. But he's picking up that trot without me asking him to. And I really just want him to come back to that nice, easy walk. So again, this is all him. I was ready to be done. But he obviously wasn't, so we can work more. Ask for his focus there. So he was sort of giving me his focus with one eye. He's kind of looking at me out of one eye over here. Like that right there, but he's not actually. There's two eyes. There, can you see the difference? There he licks and chews and relaxes a little bit. And then, yeah, there he's back to a walk. I was just about to say, and then he starts walking and his head's coming down and relaxing. Not that. Two eyes. There you go. And now drive. A lot of body work. Like I said at the beginning of this horse needs a ton of body work. Keep driving through that. Keep driving through that. Keep driving through that. Nobody asked him to stop over there. The only reason he stopped is that the gate's behind him. He didn't want to go forward anymore. Keep driving, but give to that halter. You see him there? Instead of giving to that halter, he flies backwards and basically sits back. That's not okay. I got to free up that front end. He's still running away with his front end. I need him to see that it's bracing. There. Not that. That's running away. There. That's bracing. There. That's bracing. There. There. You can see how high his head is, how crappy all of this is. There. That's what I'm looking for. Now I'm just going to come up here and end with some lateral flexion. So all of that's got to go away. And he's learning, he's figuring out, maybe I shouldn't do this. This really sucks. This is a lot of work. This is all normal stuff. He's got to figure out how not to go to that panic state of his mind. But we sure want him to figure that out before we get on his back, because I don't want to be on any horse's back when they go into panic state. That's not fun at all. So he needs to learn how to stay soft to this halter, keep driving his feet in the direction I want him to go. You don't get to stop just because the gate's behind you. Doesn't mean you get to stop. You ever been on a horse that rears up with you because you're trying to leave the gate or leave somewhere that the horse wants to be, leave their buddies or whatever, and the horse doesn't want to go, and so you're trying to make it go. You're trying to pull left, right, kick, left, right, kick, left, right, kick, and eventually the horse just rears up because it doesn't want to go forward. That's the kind of thing that he could get to. Good. I'm allowing him to stop there because he finally came through that circle there and just drove through it without changing anything there. Now you can see focused, but nice low head. Doesn't really have one foot slightly out, but he doesn't really look like he's about to go somewhere. He just looks content to be standing there now. That's how I want to end the session, and that's really how I want him at the start of every session. Like when I get on and ride him, I want him in this state. And that way, when I'm asking him to go somewhere, he goes somewhere based on me asking, not based on fear and just running away. Just going to wait for looking at you here. So his mind is kind of spiraling him up. We're going to see if he's going to, oh, good, there's looking at you. Good. So he was able to mentally bring himself back down. His mind spiraled him up. He's like, oh my gosh, it's quiet in here. Nothing's going on. I don't have anything to focus on. What, should I focus on all the scary things? And then his mind went, don't worry about all that stuff. Let's just enjoy the moment that we get to sit here and relax. Very good. All right. We're going to call that a night on him. I think that was a good session. I think he reverted just a little bit over the 3 days, just because I've only been working with him for like a week. So, he didn't have quite that foundation built when we took 3 days off, but it's fine. He's still in a much better spot than he was. And we're going to definitely make a lot of progress with him over the next little bit. All right. Have a good night.